This is historic for any presidential platform to be talking about pesticides, health, and the food supply. We have a crisis of reproduction ability in this country. It's horrifying. It doesn't matter how somebody feels about abortion. If you can't get pregnant, abortion is not an issue. Vote based on who you feel is really going to do the most around health. Poison is not partisan.
Serial killers, parolees, and kids with behavior issues in public school all have something in common.
They brag that they live on junk food. This is the key factor, I think, to violence in America. I am hell-bent on making sure that every mom in America knows this.
Empowered moms create healthy kids. This is what today's guest has believed for decades now as the leading activist in the country fighting to get GMOs out of our food supply and educate moms specifically about toxins in our food. If you want to feel absolutely fired up about this election and why the current health crisis should be one of the top issues for you while voting, this is the episode. Zen Honeycutt is the founding executive director of the nonprofit Moms Across America. She is also an international speaker and the author of Unstoppable: Transforming Sickness and Struggle into Triumph, Empowerment, and a Celebration of Community. Zen hasn't ever been what she would consider politically conservative. It's always been a hyper-liberal value to care about crunchy living and organic food. But fighting to get toxins out of our food supply have her making some shocking compromises this election. Maybe you can relate. We discussed some ingredients you weren't aware of in public school lunches, why GMOs and glyphosate are two of the most dangerous things in American food today, and why moms specifically are the most powerful voting group in America. Watch this episode on the Real Alex Clark YouTube channel or Culture Apothecary on Spotify. Leave a 5-star review if you believe in our mission to heal a sick culture physically, mentally, and spiritually. Please welcome founder of Moms Across America, Zen Honeycutt, for this Election Eve episode of Culture Apothecary. Your kids were really sick, 22 different food allergies and intolerances, autoimmune issues, autism symptoms, asthma. What did you find out was causing it?
Well, we looked into the food supply, GMOs and glyphosate at the time, and we found that GMOs actually cause resistance in the gut and can cause inflammation and gut dysbiosis. Glyphosate can do the same thing. And we started to remove GMOs from our diet. And then later on, we removed glyphosate and went 100% organic. And my kids got better, especially the autism symptoms. Within 6 weeks, my son, who had glyphosate in his urine, he had autism symptoms. And when we removed all of that from his diet, we went completely organic. Within 6 weeks, his autism symptoms almost completely recovered and only come back when we eat, food that is not organic and junk food when he does. And so at the time, we didn't make the connection to any other types of medications or jabs or anything like that. What we see with our network is that whenever there's gut dysbiosis going on in the body and inflammation, if you remove the things that insult the gut, like the glyphosate, pesticides, all of that in the food, the processed foods, and you give the body a chance to heal, they can start to recover. And that's what my kids did. They went from the 20-something different allergies. Now they can eat dairy, they can eat wheat, they can eat eggs. My son that was deathly allergic to nuts can even eat nuts. He doesn't want to, right? But he has a very mild reaction to it, doesn't have to go to the hospital. They're not going to kill him.
How do you do that? How do you go from having such a severe reaction to all of these foods to being able to eat them?
Eliminating the things that are insulting the gut lining integrity, like glyphosate actually disrupts the gut microbiome. It kills off the beneficial gut bacteria and allows for the pathogenic gut bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella to proliferate. It also, if you think about GMOs, the first type of GMO is a Bt toxin, and what it does is it makes holes in the stomach of it's a constant toxin factory, Bt, it's bacteriotherogenesis. And when they genetically engineer it to create more toxins, it busts little holes in the stomach of the bug that eats it, and then the toxins get out of its stomach and cause gut dysbiosis and toxicity and death of the bug, right? So that's what's happening with our children's guts. They are getting impacted by GMOs, glyphosate, other types of medications, chemicals, toxins. You know about this. I'm sure your audience knows about it, but it's overwhelming their systems. And when you remove that, insult to their gut and give their gut a chance to heal, they do heal. Our body's amazing, and we can get rid of glyphosate and a lot of these pesticides within 1 to 2 weeks. And then that's when the body can start to heal. And you'll see the gut lining of the gut, the integrity start to come back together. There's many different supplements that can help with that. There's bone broths. There's, many different types of diets you can take. And when that starts to happen, they start to sleep better. They start to behave better. They start to learn better. My kids' grades went from, A's when they were doing well, when they were having the autism symptoms, down to D and F's. And then once we recovered their diet and their gut began to heal, they went back up to A's again. So I've seen firsthand that our kids can recover from extreme life-threatening allergies and from all types of autoimmune issues. And that's why I am hell-bent on making sure that every mom in America knows this.
When you found out that it was chemicals allowed into our food by the government, did you feel deeply let down? That feels like an understatement, but how did you feel knowing that the government had allowed something like that to harm your children on purpose?
I felt deeply betrayed. It was a Matrix moment for me. You've seen those memes, I'm sure, on the internet, when all of a sudden the grocery store, everything just looks like poison, like the moment in the Matrix where everything changes. And I was pretty depressed for about 3 days. Like I went in, I sobbed. I sobbed. I was so mad. What happened was I saw Robin O'Brien's TED Talk on YouTube in 2012 called Patriotism on a Plate. And her kid had allergies. She learned about GMOs. She didn't talk about glyphosate then. It was just GMOs. And she knew that would be impactful to her children and increase their allergies. And I was like, that must be it. Then I watched Jeffrey Smith's movie, Genetic Roulette, and he also mentioned glyphosate and the way that GMOs impact the body. And I knew this was it. And I was like, how could the government change the food, not tell us, not label it, and allow these, at the time I was mostly focused on GMO foreign proteins in our food without any type of real safety precautions. It was baffling. And so it's really, like, before then, I had just bought food in the grocery store. I bought household care products, I bought body care products, and I assumed that the government was making sure they were safe.
Most Americans see something on a shelf, they assume it's safe.
Absolutely. I did that.
We see something on a shelf, we should always assume the opposite first.
Now we know we have to read the ingredients, but not only that, Alex, we have to assume that what is on the label is not everything. And here's why. The FDA created a loophole way back when GMOs, it's been over 30 years now, were introduced in the food supply. And they said GMOs are not an additive, even though you can test and you can find them there, right? They're a substance. You can find them. They're foreign proteins. They're a process. So that created a loophole where the food companies didn't have to say, oh, this is an additive like salt or sugar. We have to make sure it's safe. We have to record it on the label. No, they didn't have to do that. They did the same thing with pesticides. They said, oh, it's just a process, not an additive. So glyphosate, which we have detected and other people have detected in thousands of food samples, doesn't have to be on the label. So there are thousands of pesticides that don't have to be on the label. And the problem that I have with this is that the taking away that knowledge from the consumer, from the shopper, from the people who are spending their hard-earned money on this, it's fraud. It's fraud. And what it does to our culture is extremely unsettling. If you think about it, when you go back to tribal days, men would protect and provide, right? And they would go out and hunt and they would get the food, but the women would decide what the tribe ate. They cooked it, they prepared it. They had to know if the berries were poison, if the meat was rancid, right? They had to know all of that. And they knew because they knew where the source of the food came from. They saw the animal before it died. They saw the berries. They knew where they grew. Nowadays, we don't know. We don't know what is in our food because the government is not requiring food manufacturers to label it. They're not requiring batch testing. And so the majority of consumers are purchasing food that is not accurately labeled, and we are being poisoned.
You have dedicated your entire life to this work. So it's not like you think they're a little bit bad. You obviously believe that GMOs and glyphosate are catastrophic to human health.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not just me. There are scientists. One of our advisors has been a plant pathologist for, I think, 60 years now. He's in his 90s. Dr. Don Huber. He says that glyphosate is going to make DDT look like mouthwash. Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who wrote the book Toxic Legacy, it says that glyphosate is the major contributing factor to over 40 Western medical diseases. So we are looking at the largest impact on human health of any chemical that has ever been exposed to humans for a couple of reasons, not just because how it functions, which is it functions as a chelator, meaning it grabs onto and makes unavailable the vital nutrients of any living thing it touches. Dr. Don Huber says it basically gives a plant AIDS. So it's a chelator, it's an endocrine disruptor, which we know disrupts hormones, impacts reproductive systems, every organ of the body, which can contribute to cancer. It's a carcinogen, it's a neurotoxin, and it damages the nervous system. It also causes liver and kidney damage. So when you look at the many different ways that glyphosate harms the body, plus you look at the exposure, it is the most widely used herbicide in the world. Over 280 million pounds a year are used in the U.S. alone. Then you know it makes sense. Wow, massive exposure. Plus, it functions in all these different ways that disrupt the metabolic system, the endocrine system, the nervous system, all these different ways. Then it makes complete sense as to why we are in a health crisis in America today. And it is catastrophic for us. In fact, the rat studies that we brought to the EPA, I've met with the EPA, I don't know, 4 or 5 times now. I think it was on the 3rd or 4th time we brought up the endocrine disrupting issues. And we brought to them a study that showed that the rats that were exposed to glyphosate, by the 4th generation, that generation of rats were completely not viable. We might be in just about the 4th generation of exposure to glyphosate now. I mean, my father, who passed away 5 years ago, was in his 90s. He told me not to use Roundup. I suggested to use Roundup when he wanted us to pull weeds out of the pond. And he said, no, we're not going to use that. That was over 30 something, years ago.
Right.
So we're getting close to that 4th generation, and it's extremely concerning about the impact that glyphosate has on not just this generation, but on subsequent generations as well.
We are talking about this because this is what is on the line this election year. Let's just get to the basics. Like, how would you explain this to an elementary schooler? What are GMOs, and why did the government approve them getting into our food supply?
So the government was convinced by corporations, which we know has been happening for decades and decades now, that GMOs would feed the world. That was the line that they used. And that the population was growing so much that we had to have GMOs in order to survive. And so the government went ahead and approved them. I believe it was Clinton that did most of that. But all of the subsequent administrations just said, yeah, go ahead, and basically gave them carte blanche with GMOs. There was some talk about grass generally recognized as safe, and the FDA trying to, look over things over. But they basically were convinced by corporations, which, by the way, give 30-something, maybe close to 40% of the funding to these regulatory agencies, to the EPA and the FDA and the CDC. So their funding is heavily dependent upon, these corporations. So the corporations give them the money, they pressure them, and they tell them that we need to have these GMOs. And so the government approved them, and along with these GMOs, so there's three kinds of GMOs. The first one I mentioned already is Bt toxin, Bacteria thuringiensis GMO. It's when the plant is genetically engineered to have poison, have the pesticide built right in to every cell of the plant. So if the corn rootworm comes along and eats either the root or the stalk or the corn, of any part of the plant, that Bt toxin will get into the corn rootworm's stomach. It will create a little toxin factory, and it will explode the stomach of the bug that eats it, and the bug will die. So the problem with this is that that's the same type of corn that's in many of our tortillas, our corn syrups, our cereals, all of that. And there were no human studies to show that this Bt toxin wouldn't do the same exact thing to our human guts.
Do you think we need to completely stop eating corn entirely, or do you feel like organic corn on the cob or organic corn in the can is safe?
I think organic is safe, but some people have been so damaged by corn and their body recognizes corn as such an assault that they can't eat any corn at all.
Wow.
Some people are extremely, and the corn ingredients are so, like, you have to look them up. It's a list of like 20 different, at least maybe even more ingredients that utilize corn in processed foods. So for some people that are severely allergic to corn, they can hardly eat any, there's so many foods they can't eat at all. So that's the first one, Bt toxin. And then the second type of GMO is HT, herbicide tolerant, and that's primarily Roundup Ready types of corn, soy, sugar beets, canola. And so the entire crop can be sprayed with either an airplane or a tractor with Roundup or other types of, there's 750 brands of glyphosate herbicides, so many different brands of herbicides. And the crop will not die, but all the other weeds around it will. It'll kill everything else. The earthworms, the microbes in the soil, all of that. So the crop continues to live. And now the problem is that glyphosate does not entirely wash off, dry off, cook off, all of that. It remains on the plant. It absorbs in. And that's why we see it in almond milk and wine and things like that. It's not sprayed directly even on that plant.
So how important is it to buy organic wine?
Oh, very essential. Yeah.
Would you even drink wine if it wasn't organic?
No, I don't anymore. No. And unless it's from, Italy or France, places where they don't even use that anymore. They don't use it. Yeah. So glyphosate's used directly on GMO crops. That's a crop I just mentioned, but it's also used as a weed killer around crops, like almonds or grapes. And it's used as a drying agent as well on wheat and peas and beans and legumes and things like that. So it can absorb into those crops is my point. And then we eat it and we're not Roundup ready.
Right. Yeah.
Surprise, we're not Roundup ready. So it harms us. It affects our bodies. Now, the third type of, and that's 80%, by the way. The Roundup ready GMOs are 80% of the GMOs out there. So that's why moms across America went after glyphosate, because we're like, if we can get rid of glyphosate, we're getting rid of 80% of GMOs in the food supply. So hasn't happened yet. We're waiting on that, but we are making a lot of progress. The third type of GMO was developed later. It's what I call DT, or desired trait GMOs. So the desired traits are CRISPR, gene edited, and they're the ones that have a desired trait, like more vitamin A in rice or apples or potatoes that don't brown. Now, mind you, they're still rotting. You could smell them rotting.
Okay, that's concerning.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing that existed.
Yes, there are GMO potatoes. They're called Simplot potatoes. A lot of restaurants use them.
Ew.
And they don't brown.
So if they don't brown, but they're still rotting, how do you know as a human being, like, that's a signal that this isn't safe to eat?
Yes, yeah. You'd have to smell them. But if they're like cooked in canola oil, GMO canola oil, and you can't smell, so that's concerning. And then there's also desired trait type salmon, which is genetically engineered to grow 4 times faster, 4 times fatter, and be sterile.
And this is the farm-raised salmon.
It's genetically modified farm-raised salmon.
Okay.
Yes. And so not all farm-raised salmon is genetically modified, but
Got it.
It could be because they don't require labeling for it.
Oh, great.
Yes.
So wild-caught is very important
Very
for
important,
seafood.
yes. And so the problem with these types of GMOs, even though they don't sound quite as bad, like a pink pineapple or different colored strawberries, that are genetically modified for cosmetic reasons as well, they don't sound as bad because they don't involve pesticides or herbicides like the other two. But the preliminary studies have shown thousands of off-target mutations. And that means other parts of the entity, of the body, of the organism are changing, kind of like, they could be like a scab. You know how your body tries to protect itself and creates a scab? And it's not intended. So for me, I'd like my food to be intentional. Like I'd like to feed my children food that I know is not going to cause off-target mutations. So I'm very concerned about all 3 kinds of GMOs. And unfortunately, our government has said, oh, you only need to have, originally it was just a QR code. And then the Supreme Court said, no, you need to do better than that. So some companies are now saying contains bioengineered ingredients.
Right. I just took that to mean a fancy word for GMOs.
It is.
Okay.
It is. And it's a euphemism though. They took the word bio from Europe, which means organic.
Okay. So
and they
it's
stuck
really
it in front of
deliberately there to trick.
Yeah, well, they didn't use genetically modified because the activists made too much of a fuss about it. So too many people now know about GMOs and, genetically engineered or genetically modified. So they're like, oh, we're not going to use that word, which is just fraudulent. It's just criminal.
Seed oils are the new cigarettes. Having one carton of fast food French fries dipped in vegetable oil is causing the same physical harm to your body on the inside as smoking a carton of cigarettes. Every little snack counts. Limiting seed oil consumption lowers your body's inflammation, which is a magnet for chronic disease. This is why I choose MASA Chips when I get a craving for something salty. MASA Chips are a small family-owned tortilla chip brand that only uses grass-fed beef tallow, organic corn, and real salt. That's it. That's how chips are supposed to be. They're thick and crunchy, supremely coated in salt, and the best chip you will ever eat. Multiple flavors, including a churro version, which is a new favorite of mine. Go to masachips.com and use code REALALEXClark to get 20% off your first order of seed oil-free tortilla chips. That's masachips.com. Use code REALALEXClark to get 20% off your first order. Tell us about some of the corruption wound into policies on food in America.
It's staggering. I mean, first of all, there's the loopholes we just talked about where they can put GMOs and pesticides and allow them in our food supply without being labeled. Now there is bioengineered, but it's not on everything. We're not seeing that everywhere. So not allowing people to know what they're buying I think is completely corrupt and fraudulent. Well, total corruption and control. There's a good example. I FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act, sent a letter request to the EPA regarding the communications between Just Bear, which bought Monsanto, Just Bear, and just the EPA, just between the years of 2020 to 2022, which is when they were assessing glyphosate to see whether or not it was carcinogenic and whether or not they were going to allow it for another 15 years. So I wanted to see what was Bayer saying to the EPA during that time. And I got a response back 6 months later saying, are you really sure? Do you still want this request? And I said, yes, I do. And I said, why are you asking? They said, well, because it's going to take 4 years to fulfill it. I said, why 4 years? And they said, because there's a couple 100,000 communications. I said, just between 2020 and 2022, and just between Bayer, just between the EPA, just containing the word glyphosate. And they said, yes. And I said, that breaks down to over 1,200 communications a day if it's just 200,000 communications.
That can't be right.
That's what they're telling me.
So if they're speaking that much about glyphosate, what does that tell you?
That's complete control. That's not even corruption. That is a completely manipulated agency by a corporation. That's got to be, they're communicating with everybody at the EPA, right? There's like mass e-blasting everybody at the EPA every day, multiple emails. It has to be, or phone calls or memos or faxes or however they communicate, right? I said, but why is it going to take so long? And they said, well, because we have to redact the proprietary information. I said, I'll do you a favor. Don't redact anything. Just send it over. They're like, no, we have to protect the business. I said, well, while you're protecting the businesses, you realizing that you're putting our children at risk. And they said, well, we're sorry, but this is what has to happen.
Yeah, it's protocol.
Yeah. And so that information, I believe every American has a right to see it. And that's being withheld from us. So it'll be withheld for another couple of years. And this is a type of corruption that's happening within our government agencies. It's very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around sometimes because my mother taught me to find the good in everyone. And so I really believe that there's got to be somebody at the EPA, there's got to be somebody at the FDA, the CDC, all these places that thinks about their own child in regarding to the policies that they are advocating for.
Yeah, you would think. You
would think that they would. So it's very challenging for me to understand how they sleep at night and how these things are happening. Now, I did meet somebody from the EPA who was really struggling with it, and we were offering free glyphosate tests outside of the EPA one day. We're just standing there like, free glyphosate tests, and just give us your urine, we'll test it. We'll say, So we did that, and one of the women from the EPA was like, this place is a cesspool and it's corrupt and I'm the only one speaking out and I can't believe it. And, she was very vocal about that. Unfortunately, she wasn't there another couple of years later when I tried to reach out to her again. But, um, I think there might be some good people there, but I think the culture is so corrupted that they have an extremely difficult time of getting anything done. And that's why I think the policy change has got to start top down. We've got to have a president in office that will actually have the courage to get rid of the corruption and the people who have been following the status quo. And it's time. If there was ever a time to vote with as to be a one issue voter, it's now, and that issue is health.
What would you tell a family that's living in rural America and they happen to be living next to a farm that is spraying glyphosate? Do you think that they need to move? Or is it just like it's all over everywhere, there's really nowhere to escape it anyway, so you might as well stay?
Well, the first thing I would do is approach the farmer and give that farmer other alternatives. There are other alternatives. I would ask. I would never assume that somebody is not going to make a change. I always give people, I hate to say the benefit of the doubt, but I always try to think that people will consider, an alternative, especially if you bring them the solution.
What's the solutions they could bring?
So right now there's regenerative organic farming. It improves the microbiome in the soil, which means improved organic matter, which leads to better water sequestration, better carbon sequestration, and healthier crops, more nutrient-dense crops. When you have more nutrient-dense, healthier crops, you have less pests. So you use less pesticides, if none at all. You don't have to use as much fertilizer because the soil has more organic matter in it.
Right.
And with regenerative organic farming, you use cover crops and animals that graze and all of that. Now, there's also alternatives to glyphosate, which are weed killers that are based with vinegar, different types of soaps, different types of other ingredients that do kill weeds. So there are alternatives. There's also crimping and cover crops and other methods, to use that include regenerative organic farming, biodynamic farming, things like that. So there's alternatives. I would ask first. The way that you ask is very important. You cannot go to somebody and tell them that what they're doing is just wrong and it's going to make you sick and give you cancer. You cannot put them on the defensive. You've got to basically make friends with the person first. You've got to have something in common. You've got to understand them and what they're...
Build rapport.
You've got to build some rapport first. It's very, very, very important, and come to them with the solution. And if that doesn't work, I would move. Absolutely. Okay. It's just too dangerous to be around.
More than any other group out there, who are legislators most afraid of?
Moms. And I confirmed this. I asked a legislator before we started the first event Moms Across America had, which was to join into 4th of July parades, right? At first I thought of going to a march on Washington kind of thing. But I thought, moms and kids and strollers, at the time, activism was not cool. Okay. So it was like, yeah, that's just not going to happen. People aren't going to invest that much time and energy into it. So, but I thought of 4th of July parades because they're local, they're accessible, they're easy, they're affordable. You just slap some red, white, and blue on a tricycle and a t-shirt and join in, right? And you can reach thousands locally and millions nationally in a single day, a unified effort.
So smart.
It was awesome. Moms Across America March to Label GMOs was the first event. But I didn't want to put all this time and energy into making that happen if it wouldn't matter to people on the Hill, right? So I asked a legislator, would this matter if a bunch of moms were marching about this in hometown parades? And he said, oh yeah, legislators are more afraid of moms than any other grassroots group out there.
Why?
We are just unstoppable. We are fierce and determined. We do our research. I mean, there's a saying goes that a worried mom does better research than the FBI. Yeah. So, we will figure it out. And we will tell everybody about it. We'll tell people about the problem and we'll tell people about the solution. You cannot get anything by a mom and her entire community. She will tell everybody about if somebody's a problem, like, that babysitter, not good. She will tell all her friends about that, right?
Yeah.
And she will tell people about a solution. When somebody's awesome, she will tell them about it. And you can't stop that in parking lots, in preschool playgrounds, barbecues, birthday parties. Moms talk. And we buy 85% of the food. So we're the ones to transform the food supply. We make 90% of household purchasing decisions. Women do. And people trust moms. So that's why I chose Moms Across America, even though we have a lot of dads and a lot of other supporters. And it's been a beautiful thing. We call ourselves a national coalition of unstoppable moms.
Some people might think, okay, You know what's good enough? Me just making sure that I am buying organic and GMO free for my own family. Like, that's as much as I need to do. How can we take this a step further and get change on the governmental level?
First of all, we need to stop thinking about just our own family, because here's the thing, that GMO study that I mentioned earlier about the fourth generation, there was a different one that showed tumors and all that. It showed that the third generation of rats were sterile. So if you want your children to be able to have spouses, right? That's what I thought. Wait a second. I have 3 sons. If they want to have children someday, they need to meet spouses with women with reproductive organs that work, and their reproductive organs need to work. So this whole idea of I'm just going to feed my family organic doesn't work for our community. It doesn't work for the future of my children and our family and our legacy. So this is a community issue. So then you look at your community and you share this information with your community. And we've done that. We've given out like 500,000 flyers, people in person. And I've always said this flyer is like the ticket to a whole new pathway of health for them. This could change their lives. So that's what people feel when they give out these flyers at, festivals or street fairs, or leave them in grocery stores, or slip them into doctors' magazines, like stealth activism. We've given out these flyers to raise awareness all across the country. And when you raise awareness with consumers, that's the impetus for policy change. And we're seeing that after the testing, which I'm sure we'll get into, of our school lunches. We've seen some policy change that has been initiated. And we are so excited to hear things like pesticides, autism, and chronic disease. Not excited about that, but to hear those words together on a presidential platform recently was, I was screaming through the roof. I was so excited. I don't care what party you are from. I hope you're excited about that, because this is historic for any presidential platform to be talking about pesticides, health, and the food supply.
But you don't consider yourself to be conservative, right? At least historically you haven't?
In the past, no.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've been in this fight for how many years?
12 years.
So did you have to make some compromises when it came to fighting for your values this election? And have you seen other moms do the same? Ones that would say, I would never say I'm conservative, but this health issue is so important, I'm willing to make some compromises.
You know what? I don't even think so much about the label, but I'm in alignment with so many more issues because I became more conscious and aware of the corruption and also the values of different parties. I really don't think the party is the focus. It's the issue. And everybody can be in alignment with health and with not having food that's poison, and with every single person in America having access to safe, non-toxic, nutrient-dense food. It should not only be for people who can afford organic. Organic is very expensive. Look at the grocery store. The organic pasture-raised regenerative eggs are almost $10 a dozen. The ones that are conventional are like $1.99. This is not workable for the future of our country. And poison is not partisan. It really does not matter what party you come from. Cancer is not choosy. It will affect all of us. It's reproductive issues affect all of us. Mental health issues, huge right now. And mental health issues, by the way, affect policemen, your babysitter, your school coach, politicians, and when we're consuming neurotoxins in our food, you can guarantee that they're going to be affecting people in your family and in your community around you. So I would invite people from all parties to consider how important this issue right now is, and to vote based on who you feel is really going to do the most around health and regenerative organic farming. That's the most important thing right now.
Does the government have evidence that glyphosate is harmful to human health?
Absolutely. The government absolutely has evidence that glyphosate is harmful to human health.
So then
they have
why is it
hundreds
allowed?
of studies. They are being pressured by the big corporations and big ag. They're being told that glyphosate is an essential tool for farming, and that the farmers won't be able to farm, and that the economy and the agriculture system will collapse.
And why is it these chemical companies, why is it so important that they fight this hard? They silence people. They send psychos online to shut down people like you for talking about this. Why is it so important for them to be able to spray this chemical?
This is such an important tool to farmers because they believe right now it's the only tool or one of the main tools. And they have machinery and tens of thousands of acres that is dependent on that way of spraying chemicals, right? So for them to switch out of the agrochemical farming practice and switch to regenerative organic is a huge change for them. Now, the government this past administration did fund, it was about $300 million for transitioning to organic or actually to regenerative. So there are practices that are being done to transition, and it will take time, and more will do that. But they're still very resistant. And Bayer just put out a new version of Roundup that is 45 times more toxic than the original one.
Why are they doing that when they've already got commercials running on TV for people that have gotten cancer from using Roundup? I mean, that's all over the place. So why would you continue this product?
They have an obligation to shareholders to make money, and they have committed so many, probably hundreds of millions of dollars into the brand Roundup. They are determined to continue to sell it. And it's just awful business practice. I mean, poisoning people is not a good business practice. For the life of me, cannot, understand how they can continue with this.
I just filmed a really big, really exciting interview with someone that will come out the first week of December. And she said to me, I just started using Zebra toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste I've ever used. Wasn't planned, and she wasn't paid to say that. Zebra is my favorite new non-toxic personal care brand for toothpaste, floss, and deodorant. No fluoride or hydroxyapatite, just xylitol. Maybe hydroxyapatite works for you. I was getting gray spots on my teeth, so I needed to switch. I've had no problems with Zebra. Their floss is also incredible. I haven't had too much luck with non-toxic floss. A lot of it breaks or it gets stuck in the teeth. The leading non-toxic floss brand, which is super colorful, you know the one that I mean, is the most lib company on earth, by the way. You may not know that. And they're also using recycled plastics to make their floss, which doesn't exactly excite me. Zebra is loud and proud conservative. Go to yayzebra.com and use code ALEX for 10% off. That's yayzebra.com and code ALEX for 10% off. Is glyphosate also in the tap water?
Yeah, so Moms Across America initiated the first glyphosate testing in America in 2013 and came out in 2014. And the information that we put out showed that glyphosate was in the majority of tap water, urine, and we found it in 3 out of 10 breast milk samples. And the one breast milk sample that was the highest for glyphosate was the woman who ate conventional food. She was not a Moms Across America supporter. All the other women knew about Moms Across America. This one was a friend of a Moms Across America supporter, and she ate conventional food, and her levels of glyphosate were 3,000 times higher than what has been shown to cause sex hormone changes and kidney damage in liver in animal studies.
Now, see, let me just tell you.
Yeah.
My audience will hear that and they'll say, oh, so now the breast milk is even toxic. So I shouldn't even breastfeed my kid. They get really overwhelmed.
Right.
But that is not what Zen is saying. What Zen is saying is that the standard American diet is not serving you, that the glyphosate is now ending up in your breast milk. So the solution isn't stop breastfeeding your baby.
Yes.
The solution is stop eating the crap food that will then get into your breast milk and poison your baby.
Yes. Be more conscious about what you're putting in your body, and what you give to your baby will be healthier and safer. Absolutely. Breastfeeding is, in my perspective, is really the only way. I know there are some people who absolutely can't. But, here just recently at the Weston A. Price Foundation conference, Natasha Campbell McBride said something which is going to be very controversial to some people. And that is, she said we should bring back wet nursing, which is something that happened 100 years ago. There were pretty much designated women in a community that ate really clean, that kept their bodies healthy and safe, and they were the designated wet nurses for babies. So if a woman died or she was very sick and she couldn't breastfeed, that baby would go to the wet nurse. Now, we can have mothers pumping milk. You may not want to just, hand your baby over to somebody else all the time, but you might have a designated person in your community that if you cannot breastfeed, will pump milk for you, and you can bottle feed that baby. And,
I like this idea.
Yeah. And if you think about it, the only reason why this is not happening still is because corporations brainwashed us and told
we
us
think breastfeeding is gross and sharing it would be gross.
Well, they told us that their product is better.
Right.
That their soy formula, their baby formula with 47% corn syrup solids is better than breast milk somehow, or is better than your neighbor's or your, a designated person in your community or your sister or your cousin's breast milk. They broke the trust between women. We used to trust our community to take care of our children. We used to trust each other. And now corporations have broken that trust and said, no, don't trust this woman in your neighborhood. Trust us with our corn syrup solids.
What would shock people about the food being served in American public schools?
American public schools, we tested 43 samples, from 18 locations across the country. Our moms and their kids got these samples for us. We love them so much. And what we found was 93% of them were positive for glyphosate that we just talked about. 74% of them were positive for pesticides, up to 27 different pesticides. 4 of them, meaning 10% of them, had an aviary contraceptive in the school lunch samples.
What are aviary contraceptives?
It's a drug. It's an anti-parasitic, actually, that's used for a common chicken disease called cocciditis. And it cannot be given to egg-laying birds because it prevents the egg-laying birds from laying eggs. It can only be given to the meat birds. So this is why this drug, narcobazine, was found in the meat of the chicken in the school lunch samples.
And what does that do to a human child?
That's a good question. You'd think maybe our government or the NIH would want to know, is our children, especially our girls, consuming an aviary contraceptive on a daily basis in school lunches going to prevent them from being fertile? They have a finite number of eggs. When a woman is pregnant with a baby girl, she's actually pregnant with her grandchildren as well, the eggs of her grandchildren, because a baby girl is born with a finite number of eggs. Now, if they're consuming an aviary contraceptive on a daily basis at school because they love chicken nuggets, is the release of their eggs one day going to be impaired? We don't know. What's happening to boys? Does it impact their perspective on their sexuality? Does it impact their testes? Does it impact their reproductive organs? We don't know.
We're seeing this skyrocketing amount of men in their early 20s with ED.
Yes, we are.
That's very weird.
Well, we have 1,200 endocrine disrupting chemicals in our food supply in America. Europe allows 3. We have a huge amount of hormonal disrupting chemicals in our food supply. We also
should really piss you off.
It really and the fact that cows are being given drugs to promote the milk production hormones to create more milk. I recently talked to one of my dearest, oldest friends who is a school counselor at a high school. And she said, Zen, our kids are in a lot of trouble. She said, I had a 15-year-old girl walk into my office the other day crying because when she was in the shower, her breast started to suddenly produce breast milk just in the shower for no reason. She's not pregnant. She's not on any kind of birth control or anything like that. And at the time, I did not know why that was happening. But after the school lunch testing, I realized, it's because these kids are drinking milk with hormones in it that are to promote the production of milk. That's what's happening to our kids.
Okay, now here's another bomb. Who is supplying the food used in our public school lunches?
Fast food companies. Isn't that gross? It's fast food companies. Don't you think America could do better? Well, when you think about the distribution system, though, fast food companies all across the country, it does make sense, right? They're going to have the closest distribution to these schools. What they do is they have these big fairs and festivals, and I've confirmed this with, the school directors, the school nutrition directors of America and associations, and they have these big conferences with booths, and Del Taco and, all these different pizza companies will have their samples out, and the school lunch directors will choose what product they're going to be serving to their kids that year. So it's fast food companies, and predominantly. So we tested fast food companies as well, along with Children's Health Defense, Moms Across America, and Centner Academy helped fund that. And what we found was also astonishing. We found 100% were positive for glyphosate, 76% were positive for up to 29 different pesticides, 100% were positive for heavy metals. Same with school lunches, by the way. Over somewhere between 1,000 to 6,000 times higher than what the EPA allows in drinking water. Heavy metals can cause lifelong permanent damage. And our kids are consuming these heavy metals at astronomical levels in their school lunches.
How much of an average American child's diet is coming from the food served at a public school?
For some kids that are in poverty levels, which is in the tens of millions in America, it's their only food they're consuming. And it is toxic. It's also abysmally low in nutrients. In fact, the nutritionist that reviewed some of the test results that we had said that these meals contain less than 10% of the recommended daily intake. So they're not eating more than 10 of these meals in a day, right? They're only eating 2 of them. So our kids are getting an abysmally low amount of nutrients.
Imagine, this is what I don't get, Zen. Imagine if a local public high school committed to working with their local organic farm and they were using that organic farm as their main supplier for their food, how that would help that farmer, that would help their community so much. It would help the children. They'd be able to learn more because they were feeling actually full and they were getting the vitamins and minerals that they need. And this is what really, really has freaked me out looking into you and your research and work that you've done, is you have mentioned that serial killers, parolees, and kids with behavior issues in public school all have something in common. What is it?
That is that they brag that they live on junk food.
You found out that they're all
Soda
vitamin
and
B deficient?
Yes, they're all vitamin B deficient. And this is so important, Alex. This is so important. And this is the key factor, I think, to violence in America and an overwrought prison system. An award-winning nutritionist and researcher, Barbara Reed Stitt, studied the food supply and parolees, criminals, and serial killers and high school dropouts for 20 years. And she would study one place for over a year in the prisoners or the high school students. And what she found was that the parolees, criminals, and serial killers bragged that they lived on junk food. They had low vitamin B. And when she supplemented them, gave them nutrition and supplements, the violent acts at the prison dropped 50 to 70% in 1 to 2 weeks.
Have we considered looking into school shooters and what their diets consisted of before that violent act?
I think that would be a fantastic study. I am sure that you would find that they, as Barbara Reed Stitt has found, that their diets consist of total junk food. They're completely nutrition deficient. And when they switched the food at these prisons to whole foods, the recidivism rate switched. Instead of 70% going, and when they go out, they leave prison, they come back. That's called the recidivism rate. Instead of 70% coming back within a year, 70% went out and stayed out. So we know how to reduce the prison population. We know how to reduce violence. And we have, for instance, the schools that she studied. There was one school with 5,000 kids. When they got whole, healthy foods instead of soda and junk food and processed foods, the dropout rate went from 500 kids out of 5,000 to 14.
And is it true if you have a kid that's kind of withdrawn or showing aggressive behavior, that if you start supplementing more vitamin B, they'll go back to being their normal self?
It's very possible. It's highly possible, in fact. But you would also want to reduce processed foods, take out the red food dye. Red food dye can cause hyperactivity and violence. So food dye is very important to get out of your diet. And eat whole, healthy foods as much as possible. In fact, I've had a Moms Across America supporter come to me and say that she needed to tell me her story because she wanted to make sure that we keep doing what we're doing. This is a woman from Santa Ana, low income, single mom, 4 kids, really struggling, and Hispanic. And she said that she told her school that her child, when he was 8 years old, had a mental health issue. And they ignored her until one day they said, you've got to come pick up your son from school because he just threatened to blow up the school with a bomb and kill everyone in it. And she said, well, I told you he has mental health issues. And they said, okay, we'll send him to a psychiatrist. So they sent him to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist assessed him and said, here's your SSRI, your drug,
of course.
Right? And she said, well, that's it for the rest of his life? And he said, well, it's either that or consider what you're feeding him. And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, what are you feeding him? She's like, well, hot dogs, pizza, quesadillas, standard American diet, right? Because he's a picky eater, which is very common with people with mental illness. And he said, well, have you considered the GMOs, the pesticides, the food dyes, the preservatives, the chemicals in the food? And she said, no, I haven't. I've just been feeding him whatever I can. He said, well, you either feed him organic or you give him this drug for the rest of his life. So she fed him organic. And when you think about it, rice and beans, organic rice and beans, very nutrient dense and very inexpensive. You can do it. It's not that much of a shift. She did that, and 2 weeks later, the principal called her and said, "We don't know what you're doing, but this is a completely new human being.
Get out of here.
I'm not kidding. Keep doing what you're doing." So she said, "Zen, I'm calling you now because it was the day after the Florida shooting." Do you remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
She said, "And my son is now 17 years old, and I know that he would be one of those kids that would go out and buy a gun and shoot kids at his school. He would have done that." That's a very difficult thing for a mother to say.
Absolutely.
And she said, but he's not going to do that because he's eating organic, he's healthy, he's happy, he's responsible, he's doing community gardens. And I said, you know what you did? You created a new future for your son. And not just for your son, but for everybody at your school and in your community, because they're not mourning a loss.
True.
Of their
and living with this imminent
trauma.
threat. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, and you might have even created a new future for our entire country, because who knows if they'll run for office, invent something. I mean, look at Google and Facebook. Just took a couple people with the idea, right? So who knows what these children will invent or contribute to society. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. We want people to live up to their fullest potential.
What did moms across America find after testing Chick-fil-A sandwiches?
We found an aviary contraceptive in them, the one I mentioned earlier, narcobazine, in Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And so we are extremely concerned about people who have been eating Chick-fil-A, because we know it's quite addictive.
So not only aviary contraceptives in there, but they just brought back antibiotic chicken.
So after we put out that information that we found an aviary contraceptive, they took away the phrase that they have, which is no antibiotics ever. They took it down off their website and they put up no antibiotics important for human health. So they changed it because I think they tested. Now, what we found was an antiparasitic. It wasn't technically an antibiotic. Otherwise, somebody could have sued for that, right? That's not why we do our testing, but somebody could have sued them for that because of their claims. I believe they might have tested and found some antibiotics. So then they changed their tune and put up a statement saying that there will be antibiotics now and then.
How often do you give your kids fast food?
Oh, never. Never.
I thought that was impossible. That's an unrealistic standard for a busy working American mom.
I mean, I've been doing this work for 12 years, so at least 12 years, they haven't had any fast food. Yeah, no.
And what do you do about sports games and activities and things?
We make food ahead of time. Sometimes they'll get Chipotle. We did, because when we did test the fast food companies, Chipotle was the one that had the lowest levels of glyphosate and was
GMOs.
Cleaner.
They're GMO free, right?
They're supposed to be GMO.
Oils.
Yeah, they're supposed to be GMO free. But like when I go there, I don't have the dairy, because they could be from cows fed GMOs with glyphosate and stuff like that. So that could be. The beans are mostly organic or non-GM, they're non-GMO, the rice and, all of that. It's much safer than the other fast food companies. The other thing we found in the burgers for fast food companies was a drug called butadiol. It's a central nervous system depressant, which on the manufacturer data sheet says it causes combativeness.
Ooh.
Why is that in there? We don't know. And we've asked ranchers, people have not responded to us about why that's in there. So you may not be eating Jack in the Box or Burger King or something like that. You may be avoiding that. But what about the guy driving the car next to you with road rage? What about your kid's coach? What about your babysitter? Are they hyped up on some type of drug that causes combativeness when they're around your kids?
Wow.
This is why I am adamant that if anybody has any time at all to get on their county commissioner, their city council, their zoning boards, and they can say no more fast food places in my town, please do that.
How is that possible, though?
It is. Montpelier, Vermont did that. They have no fast food places in their town. And that's because their citizens said, they went to the zoning board, we do not want any fast food places in our town. You can do that.
That's incredible.
Absolutely.
Organ meat is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth. Brain, liver, heart, tongue. But not everyone wants to eat it straight up. One of my favorite hacks to get a small amount of organ meat benefits is using Pluck seasoning on my food. Pluck is basically flavored seasoned salt infused with freeze-dried organ meat. It doesn't taste like organ meat at all, just super clean organic seasoning. There's different flavors to choose from, and you can use Pluck on anything that you use salt on. I love it on steak, hamburgers, especially vegetables. A lot of kids even love it on their scrambled eggs. Now it comes in a convenient shaker. Go to eatpluck.com and use code ALEX for 20% off your order. That's eatpluck.com with code ALEX for 20% off. It definitely takes some effort and time to plan ahead about what you're eating when traveling. I usually try to look up restaurants on the plane, but recently I got stuck in a situation where my only option for breakfast was the hotel cafe. It was disgusting, to say the least, and my only option was orange juice and bacon. That is what I ordered. I definitely missed my squeeze juice because it's non-GMO, no water added, never from concentrate, and sourced from a small family farm in California that shares my conservative values. Not to mention no added sugar, natural flavors, or anything else weird. Only real ingredients, usually 2 or 3, like cucumber, mandarin, or pomegranate. Simple, fresh squeezed juice, the only way it should be. You can get a big jug for the family or individual smaller bottles for lunches, personal mocktails, parties, and ball games. It ships cold straight to your door. Go to shop.squeezejuice.com and use code ALEX for 25% off your order. That's code ALEX for 25% off your order at shop.squeezejuice.com. How is censorship protecting corruption?
Oh, censorship is being utilized by the people who have been convinced from the people with an interest, like Big Pharma, Big Ag, to silence people who are saying things that disrupt their profits simply to protect their profits. The censorship that's going on right now is ruining democracy. This is not the America that I grew up in. This is not the America that I want my children to grow up in. This is it's like a dictatorship of freedom of speech. Harvard-educated, Stanford-educated doctors are being shut down, and not even that. Moms who have done their research, right? And moms who have personal experiences. Our experiences are real, right? And we don't have to go to Harvard or Stanford to have these personal experiences with our kids having reactions to medications or foods and knowing that this is real. And when we take those medications or foods out of their systems, they get better. That's real. And for us to be shut down and put in Facebook jail, and our TikTok accounts to be shut down, and Instagram and Twitter, all these things to be silenced is mind-boggling. I never thought this would be America, ever in my wildest dreams. Just the other day, I had another video taken down with a conversation with a chiropractor, and we were just talking about health. And they said, you guys said things on here that are, medically dangerous or whichever. It's ridiculous what's happening now.
Why should our food supply in America be one of the top voting issues for moms in particular?
Well, first of all, without health, we have nothing, right? So it doesn't matter if a candidate can produce more jobs. If we're too sick to do those jobs, that doesn't matter. Honestly, you asked about values earlier. It doesn't matter about how somebody feels about abortion. If you can't get pregnant, abortion is not an issue.
Wow, that is so freaking true. Gosh, that is so true, Zen.
And that's what's at stake right now. If you read Dr. Shauna Swan's book, the men have less than 50% of the sperm rate than their grandfathers did. There's like a 33% infertility rate in couples. It costs over $40,000 for one effort of IVF. That's why there's people trying to make the government pay for it, our tax dollars pay for it.
All of these other conversations are null and void without fixing this problem.
We should be fighting for the right to procreate. Every human being, no matter what their economic status or their political party, that is being hindered right now. And if you look at countries like Japan and Korea, where their rates of glyphosate, by the way, residues are 600 times higher than what they used to be, because that was pushed through. Oh, let's get more glyphosate into Japan and China and Asia. Their rates of their birth rates now are below viability. That's why they're producing so many robots, because they want robots to be able to take care of the elder generation. They know that they're not going to have enough children. We have a crisis of reproduction ability in this country and around the world that Dr. Shauna Swan talks about in her book, Countdown, that is, it's horrifying. Like, you do not read it before going to bed. It's horrifying. So we really need to address this issue of endocrine disrupting chemicals in our food supply and in our environment. Otherwise, this whole thing about, Monsanto saying we're going to have too much of a human population, we need GMOs to feed. No, they're causing the very same problem they thought they were trying to fix, or they claimed they were trying to fix, and that is they're causing the infertility of the human race.
What are the best foods to restore the gut microbiome that parents can be serving their kids, and how long do you need to commit to eating those to kind of fix things?
Well, the first thing I put in my family was sauerkraut. And because it has like 1 trillion good bacteria in 1 tablespoon. And I gave them little silver stars and gold stars for doing that. And after about a week or two of doing that, they just ate it on a regular basis. I came home from a trip recently and there was no sauerkraut in the fridge. And, my ex-husband was like, yeah, one of our sons, he was just eating it every day. So it's gone. And I'm like, oh my God, we need more sauerkraut. So yeah, sauerkraut really helps with your microbiome. And apple cider vinegar and kombucha. Also, all three of those contain a bacteria called Acetobacter, which has been shown in the soil, so, in farming, to break down glyphosate into non-toxic components.
And if you're a soda family, can I just say the kombucha switch would be so easy for your kids. To me, it feels and tastes like drinking soda. And there's all these different flavors out there. I mean, there's literally everything you can think of they've got. So that's my recommendation too, even more than Olipop or whatever. I think get your family on the kombucha train. That's a great alternative.
It is. It's fantastic. And you can change over your salad dressings. Making them yourself, by the way, is way cheaper than what's in the grocery stores. Just make that with some apple cider vinegar and some balsamic olive oil, maybe a little honey and, mustard, and you've got a great salad dressing. So yeah, that's a really good switch. And then as much as possible, switch your grains over to organic because they spray glyphosate on non-organic grains as a drying agent. And so you're eating very high levels of glyphosate on any type of like wheat, pita, pasta, crackers, flours, any of that. Yes. So switch the grains over and your oats and your beans over to organic as fast as possible.
Sprouted organic oats for oatmeal, right?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Instead of stopping through a drive-thru on a busy day, what are a couple meal hacks so busy moms who are on the go can still have the family eat at home with minimal effort? Like, what are some of your favorite tips?
Yeah, and this is not sponsored, but I recommend the Instapot and to always have rice or beans cook. I actually have two of them, and I have one for rice and one for beans, and they're kind of, it's always ready and available. Of course, I put that in the fridge afterwards, and then have those giant tortillas. I love Azure Standard. They have these massive, like 12-inch organic tortillas, and so my kids can always make burritos. And when you can have maybe a little extra cooked chicken, or if you do cheese, have some cheese in there and salsa, and they have something that's ready to eat all the time.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's always ready.
If you could offer one remedy to heal a sick culture, and that could be physically, mentally, or spiritually, what would it be?
I would say it's really a state of mind. It's really believe that you can have that future that you want to have. Without that, it's not going to happen. You need to believe it. And can I tell you a story as an example?
Of course.
So when my son was 9 years old, this is the one that almost died from eating a pecan and Thanksgiving stuffing when he was about 5 years old. So when he was 9, he had been dealing with these food allergies for a long time. And we had been going to doctors. He had been putting cream on the rash. He had a red, swollen rash around his mouth, and his lips would swell up.
I see so many kids with that.
Yeah.
That's something that can be healed?
Absolutely.
I thought it was like they're licking their lips all the time or something.
It's
from food?
It's a food allergy, and for him, it was to carrageenan. Carrageenan is a seaweed food thickener that's in just about everything kids like. It's
milk,
in
even
hot
strawberry
dogs,
milk, chocolate milk.
ice cream, anything kind of sauce or cream. It's even in lunch meats. And so he would get this rash on and on. Last 2 weeks, his lips would crack and bleed, and it just looked so painful. And we went to about 6 different doctors, couldn't do anything about it. And one day he was at the breakfast table and he looked at me super forlorn. And he was like, "Mom, I wish all my allergies would go away." And I said, "Me too, buddy." But in my head, I was thinking that's never going to happen because the doctors had told me his allergies were only going to get worse, especially to nuts, that they're life-threatening. They could eventually kill him. But then I realized what the voice in my head was saying. And I was like, well, wait a second, that's not empowering. And I'm committed to being creative, courageous, and to making a contribution in the world. That's like the context that I hold for myself. And so I was like, that's not creative or courageous or like that's being a victim, right? And that's seeing him as small. What if we could do something? What if we could make a difference in this area? So I thought of my cousin Sarah, who had gone gluten-free totally 100% for a year. I thought she was crazy because that was, back 12 years ago. But she did it. And when a year later, her gut had healed enough so that she could go to a wedding and eat a piece of wedding cake or a birthday party and eat a piece of pizza and not have a massive reaction, right? She had healed her gut enough to be able to recover to eat some gluten now and then. So I reminded my son Ben of that. And I said, would you like to one day, maybe a year from now, be able to eat a slice of pizza at a birthday party? I painted the picture for him, right? And he said, yes. And I said, well, then would you be my partner in your health? Would you drink green drinks and try acupuncture or do like whatever it takes?
So smart.
And he thought serious about it. And he said, yes. And
That's so smart.
And I shook his hand. And I said, you have a deal. I promise you, you will get better. Now, I didn't know how he was going to get better. Actually, I didn't know that any of those ways would work. But I did know that there would be progress and things would happen that normally never would have happened because I put my butt on the line. Because I stepped up and I made a promise. And we had partnership. So we did that. Within 4 months, we went GMO free. That little rash, instead of a whole mouth, was just a faint pink line underneath his lip and only lasts for 2 days. So just avoiding GMOs made a difference. And then a year later, when my other son had autism symptoms, because he was eating wheat, we were just learning about the glyphosate thing then. My middle son didn't have a gluten intolerance. The other two did. So he was eating wheat. And he's the one that broke out with the autism symptoms because he was exposing his gut to the glyphosate. So when we went 100% organic for him, we did it for the whole family. Not only did my middle son's autism symptoms get better, but my eldest son's allergies went from a 19 to nuts down to a 0.2. We healed his gut. So he no longer has a life-threatening nut allergy or any type of allergies for that matter. And he can eat whatever he wants, but he doesn't want to eat the pizza at a birthday party anymore. He doesn't eat that food. He only eats organic food. It's been over 10 years. He hasn't gone to the doctor once. We save so much money because he eats organic food.
And there's probably moms listening who are like, okay, I'm not crazy about this political party. I'm not crazy about this candidate's personality. But they do have a child that is struggling with autism. They do have a child who has behavior issues at school. They do have a child with the red rash around their mouth. What would you say to them?
Please put health as the number one voting issue this year, please.
How can people get involved in Moms Across America?
You can go to momsacrossamerica.org or .com. You can join us on our Monday Night Moms Connect calls. My book is called Unstoppable. It's available on Amazon. And we just love to learn from our network. I learn from every time we have a Moms Connect call in person on Monday nights. I learn from them. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to get the word out about this.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the work you're doing. You're such a hero to me. I'm just obsessed with you. Thank you for coming on Culture Apothecary.
Thank you.
I hope you're ready to fight, because I am. Culture Apothecary releases new episodes every Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are on a mission now more than ever to heal illicit culture physically, mentally, and spiritually. I hope you'll join us. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a 5-star review. I'm Alex Clark, and this is Culture Apothecary.